Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nursing Strategies for Success podcast. I'm your host, Damian Jenkins. And before we get into this new season, I need to take a duster to this microphone and explain where I have been within my own nursing career journey. So it turns out that when you're the Director of Education and Staff Development and Assistant Director of Nursing for a 409-bed skilled nursing facility in Manhattan, New York, with nearly 500 staff members, finding time to record a podcast becomes, well, let's just say it ranks somewhere between go through the sock drawer and hang that antique window frame that you've been holding on to for over a year on that priority list. Who knew that keeping 500-ish people educated, compliant, and fueled with snacks and caffeine would be so time-consuming? And let's not even consider all of the other responsibilities that come with the Assistant Director of Nursing side of things. There just isn't enough time in a day. But here's the thing. I've missed you. I've missed this space we've created together, and honestly, I miss having these transformative conversations. Because while I've been running around making sure everyone's certifications are current and our care standards are top-notch, I've been collecting stories, insights, and those aha moments that happen when you're deep in the trenches of healthcare administration and education. First, I want to say thank you. Thank you for not unsubscribing. Thank you for the messages asking when the show's coming back. Thank you for understanding that sometimes life and a very demanding but incredibly rewarding job takes precedence. Your patience and loyalty mean everything to me, and frankly, you're the reason why I'm sitting here today with a microphone that I had to dust off. What we do best is we learn from each other. We share the real stuff, the strategies that actually work, the failures that taught us something valuable, and the wisdom that comes from our experiences every single day. Speaking of wisdom, I am so excited about what's coming up this season. I've been quietly connecting with some incredible leaders in our industry, people who are doing the work, making the changes and developing programs that are moving the needle for the way we deliver nursing care and for the way that we support our nurses in the trenches. We're talking leaders who have transformed entire organizations, educators who have cracked the code on programs that focus on critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and professional integrity, not just technical skills. And nursing administrators who are reimagining what nursing leadership looks like within a healthy workforce and by developing relationship-based initiatives. These are not your typical talking head interviews. These are real conversations with real people who understand that behind every policy, every program, and every initiative are actual human beings trying to provide the best care possible while navigating systems that sometimes make that really, really hard. So grab your notepad and get ready that the Nursing Strategies for Success podcast is back. And thank you for being here. Thank you for coming on this journey of learning with me. And thank you for being a part of the community that believes that nursing can always get better. One strategy, one story, and one conversation at a time. If not for my 15 years of nursing experience, it is for the thousands of you out there that remind me each and every day that nurses really can do anything. Let's get into it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Nursing Strategies for Success podcast, brought to you by The Nurse Speak, a show where we rally some of our nation's greatest nurse leaders, educators, experts, and advocates to tackle some of the greatest challenges that the nursing profession faces. My name is Damian Jenkins, and I'm your host for the show. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn that nurses can do anything. All right, Kristen, thank you so much for being on the Nursing Strategies for Success podcast. Why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself to the listeners let them know a little bit about who you are, where you started in nursing, and where you are today.
Thank you, Damien, so much for having me on your podcast. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Kristen Gutierrez, and I am a nurse career coach. I started my career in 2007 as a bedside nurse. I worked in neuro ICU on night shift, and I found myself climbing up the ladder. I became a charge nurse about 2 years after I had started at the bedside, and I found myself wanting more. I got my master's in clinical nurse leadership in 2011. And by 2016, I landed a job as a nurse manager. I did that for several years, actually, all the way up through COVID. But in 2021, I actually was diagnosed with two rare neurological illnesses that left me with a physical disability.
Mm,
Now, I tried to stick through that job as much as I could. However, it became too physically taxing,
yeah.
and I was left at a crossroads with my own career. I wasn't sure what I could do or what I was capable of doing. And, I felt it was time to leave the bedside and try to pursue other things. And that's where I came across career coaching.
Mhm.
And I believe I can use my leadership skills and my nursing skills and my management skills to help nurses find jobs that they love.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for being brave to share that. Not a lot of people like to talk about their weaknesses, but I find it to be an incredible learning opportunity for all of us. Because as a nurse leader at the bedside, you remember very well your colleagues, maybe even yourself, going through real challenges and needing the support
Mm-hmm.
of your leaders, your educators, the fellow nurses who have the experience and have gone through those struggles to support them along the way. So, first of all, thank you for that. Secondly,
Mm-hmm.
wow, you didn't let your medical conditions, your challenges with your health get in your way of leveraging your nursing skill and your passion to help others. And I find that so incredible with nursing in general that we have so many transferable skills and so much opportunity to still use our nursing skills to help others. And it might look very different from a bedside capacity, which is amazing that you took that opportunity and you ran with it. So,
Mm-hmm.
other than the challenge of the health condition, right, which many of us go through, there's periods in our careers where we have new disabilities that might come up, challenges with our life balance with families, maybe aging parents, disabled children. We get into an accident, we come across some other health condition, and we have to kind of take pauses and maybe pivot in how we move along in the nursing profession. But other than that, and we'll talk about strategies surrounding that because that's very important. Other than that particular challenge, was there any other challenge that you identified with as a nurse that you are now using in your career coaching to help people who are still in the trenches at the bedside or in leadership roles in clinical settings or in academia, whatever it might be, to navigate the complexities of our nursing profession?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, as a nurse manager, especially through the pandemic,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of burnout, and a lot of nurses are just over it, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's lots of data and statistics out there, especially one that says, I believe by 2027, 1 in 5 nurses will be leaving the profession,
Mm,
which is quite scary,
yeah.
especially for our future.
Staggering.
I, being a patient myself, and at some point in our lives, we may end up on that side of the bed. I hope we all don't, but it's a reality we all have to face.
Right.
And you kind of have to wonder who's going to take care of me when I'm sick.
Absolutely.
I'm the patient now. I can't take care of myself as the nurse. So, my passion is to keep nurses within the profession, no
Yes.
matter if it is at the bedside, outside of the bedside, because the burnout is real.
Mhm.
And, we don't want to, scare future nurses away from that either. So I believe that, keeping nurses within the profession is my true passion. And, how can we overcome that burnout?
Yeah.
And I believe that using strategies for career alignment definitely will help with that.
Absolutely. So it's really important that we kind of unwrap the reality of what's happening in our profession, right? So, a lot of people would say, oh, stop blaming the pandemic for things today. But let's be honest, the pandemic really opened up a whole new perspective deeper than what nurses generally would experience. But now I think the general public has a much better inside scoop on what nurses and nursing personnel go through to deliver high quality care in such restrained environments, whether it's a resource constraint, whether it's a time constraint, whether it's a skill mix constraint, why we don't have enough seasoned practitioners mixed in with the new practitioners, whatever the
Mhm.
restriction might be, it's a real challenge. And with everything that happened with the pandemic, with the increasing costs globally, not only in healthcare, but just in cost of living in itself, and then the increase in complexities with our legal system, right? With all of the legal action that's been being taken against nurses when there's errors, possibly not even their own fault, but maybe system failures, right? Where hospitals or nursing homes or home care agencies are putting nurses into really very challenging circumstances that anyone, any one of us at the
Mhm.
best of our skill set would still make those same mistakes, right? Considering what's going on.
Mhm.
So, a lot of figuring out how to unpack this is where I feel like that alignment is so important. It's very easy for anyone to just focus on all the things that are not going right, right? It's
Mhm.
human nature to be negative and to think about all of the negative things. It's very easy for our brain to go in that direction. But what you're doing, it sounds like, is you're finding the strengths in your clients and your coworkers and your colleagues. You're helping them to elevate those strengths by finding positions within their career path that best align with their strengths, their passion, what they love to do, so that they're less likely to be burned out, right? To be less likely
Mhm.
overwhelmed and disgruntled with the realities of the system in which they're working in, right? Does that sound about
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Amazing.
Yes, definitely.
Amazing. So many people can benefit from this, right? A lot of us, this many years into our career, especially those of us who have gone through all of this already, gone through the pandemic, are picking up the pieces on the other side, rebuilding the nursing profession back to a standard of high professional integrity, critical thinking, high clinical competence, all of those things, which, let's be honest, a lot of that fell to the wayside in the face of emergencies, right? But it's time to
Mhm.
rebuild. So you're rebuilding that. I'm
Mhm.
rebuilding that. Many of us out there have these types of comprehensive programs, which are helpful. There's never enough competition because everyone needs this help. So love, love, love to have you here on the show. And let's talk about some of those strategies. Now that
Mhm.
we've let the audience know that aligning yourself with your strengths, with your purpose, with your passion, with what you love to do within the nursing profession will keep you from being burned out and will offer new challenges and new excitement and new found passion for your profession. Let's talk about some of the strategies that you do to help people get there.
Yes. So you've actually hit the nail right on the head. There's a term called ikigai, which
Mm-hmm.
is a Japanese concept of, finding what you're passionate about and living it. And I've made a model, or I follow a model called the nurse ikigai, where it identifies what do you love to do,
Mm-hmm.
what does the world need, or what is a problem that you can solve or have an idea to solve, what can you be paid for, and also what are you good at. And a combination of those things makes up your ikigai.
Mm-hmm.
So, first, I like to guide nurses through that model so that we can identify what are their strengths, what do they love to do. Do They love the, finer aspects of doing patient assessments, for example, neuro assessments, and they're like, "Ooh, I don't really like cardiac. I don't know why I started in med surge. My instructors told me to start in med surge, so I just did that
Right.
because I didn't know any better, but I hate it,
Right.
So, that's where there's a lot of misalignment, especially in newer nurses. So, talking about what they do like, what they're passionate about. Have they seen a problem that's on their unit or where they work that they have an idea that they can solve?
Mhm.
And, obviously we can get paid for nursing or through our work through the profession. So a combination of all those things makes up your nurse ikigai.
Amazing. So once you help them figure out what they're passionate about, what they're good at, what they want to do to make the money, then you have, I'm sure, lots of different career paths that might align best with them that they could pursue. Now, I'm just
Mhm.
hunching here based on my years of experience. Let's say you have a new person that they're 6 months in, they hate
Mhm.
the environment they're in. They don't like the fast pace. They don't like the constant pressure. They don't like being, demanded of when they know that it's humanly impossible to do all of the things that they need to do in the time constraints that they're given. But they have no idea what they're good at. They have no idea what they want to do. How do you lead them to a road of success?
Yes. So sometimes we have to think outside of the box and
Yeah.
think outside of nursing.
Yeah.
For example, are there any hobbies that, you like to do outside of work
Hmm.
or in your personal time that we can incorporate into nursing?
Hmm.
For example, I was talking with a nurse a few months back and she was working in the clinical side and she's like, I'm getting tired of it, you know, and I don't know what to do. And I said, okay, well, what do you like to do? And she said, well, I do like to sing
Hmm.
outside of work. Like I like to do karaoke. And I said, okay, well, have you thought about maybe taking that talent and combining it with nursing? Maybe singing for hospitals or for pediatric patients or for elderly patients in nursing homes.
Hmm.
Sometimes we have to think creatively.
Right.
And I also think that's, the beauty or the art of nursing, like you can
Absolutely.
identify a niche or a problem anywhere and, try to solve it. So that's just
Absolutely.
one example of thinking outside of the box.
No, that's great. That's a great example. And what I think a lot of nurses don't realize, seasoned nurses or new nurses for that matter, is that whenever there is an identifiable problem, a service, a product, a need, people are willing to pay for your time. They're willing to pay for your product. They're willing to pay for your service. It all comes down to how do you package that, right? How do you present
Mm-hmm.
what you have to offer and how is it going to help the individual, the group, or the organization, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's brilliant. I know for a fact nursing homes specifically, assisted living facilities specifically, and senior independent living specifically pay good money for recreational activities.
Mm-hmm.
If they had a nurse leading the recreational activities or being a main driver of the recreational activities, I can promise you that there would be higher levels of satisfaction, higher levels of engagement with the attendees or the participants. There would be a more holistic approach to make sure that everyone's, preferences are met. There would be wild reviews about how amazing everything was because nurses have that ability to deliver holistic and comprehensive care. And that does mean
Mm-hmm.
singing for a group of elders in a nursing facility as a registered nurse or a licensed practical nurse and taking that skill set, that
Mm-hmm.
passion, and combining it and marketing themselves to be the premier provider for that service. I think that's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really kind of encompasses the whole point of this podcast, which is nurses really can do anything that they want to do. They can combine their transferable skills, which we have so many, to create
Mm-hmm.
the profession and career that you really want. If it's about
Mm-hmm.
becoming a millionaire, there's opportunities for that too. But many nurses, majority of the nurses are not interested in becoming millionaires. They want to just take care of people. And they want to get a
Mm-hmm.
fair and reasonable wage. They want to be able to take care of themselves and their families. They want to put a little bit of money away for emergencies. They want to be able to go on trips and buy a house,
Mm-hmm.
just take care of college tuitions and things like that. I don't think we're asking for too much out here, right?
No, I don't think
No,
so
I don't think we're
either.
asking for too much,
Mm-hmm.
considering how much the world expects of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So amazing. So with this coaching program, finding those strengths, aligning folks, how does your program typically look from someone looking in who's interested in maybe working with you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so I do work with nurses on one-on-one sessions.
Mm-hmm.
I work with them personally so that I know, what their life situation is, what's going on, personally as well as professionally. Some nurses come to me and they say, like, oh, I feel like I'm being bullied at work and I don't know what to do. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we have strategies to work towards that. Or, they may feel like, oh, I'm on night shift right now, but my partner is, they work a regular 9 to 5 and they want me off night shift. And, I love it. I love the team that I work with. However, for my personal life, I have to move, to days.
Right.
So I work with you and your whole situation. And in in my program, I help you with your tool set, your
Mm-hmm.
skill set, and also your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us nurses, I think it's just part of who we are as a culture. We have a lot of limiting beliefs. For
Yeah.
example, oh, I can't go to the ICU straight as a new grad, or I'm too old to go into aesthetics nursing. They want the young ones.
Right.
But, we limit ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that working on that growth mindset piece will overcome a lot of the barriers and a lot of the challenges.
For sure.
I also work with nurses on their tool set, and this includes their resumes or their LinkedIn portfolios or even the job search itself. For example, there may be nursing positions, but they may not have the word quote unquote nurse in the title.
Mm-hmm.
So we may have to also think outside of the box as to finding the right position because it may just be disguised under a different name.
Sure.
And then I also help nurses with their skill set. And this is where the soft skills come in, or the transferable skills,
Mm-hmm.
working on communication, especially conflict management, because
Mm-hmm.
that can happen anywhere and everywhere.
Every day.
And also, and also, I'm a firm believer that all nurses are leaders,
Mhm.
regardless if you have that title as a manager or a charge nurse or a director or a CNO. If
Correct.
you are a staff nurse or even an LVN, you are still a leader. You are leading your patients.
Correct.
And, I love to help nurses see that concept and understand it. And, the light bulb, I can see it go off in their eyes when they're like, oh, yeah, I am a leader. So I work one on one with nurses, building up their skill set, their tool set, and their mindset.
Amazing. I think that's so important. It's such a valuable service to have available to nurses who really would like to invest in their professional growth. Um, Personal growth is going to also happen during this process. I'm very familiar with coaching. Coaches have coaches. We all have coaches, business coaches, personal coaches, fitness coaches, spiritual coaches, whatever it might be. Learning from those people who have gone through and found ways to package how to deal with things or learn a new skill, or overcome a certain challenge, it's worth the investment. Not only does it get you to the other side faster, but you learn new perspectives, you learn new ways of doing
Mhm.
things, which only strengthens you holistically in the end. So,
Mhm.
instead of wasting a lot of time on textbooks and video tutorials, which can be helpful for certain things, it's often best to connect with those people who have done it before, who have put forth the effort to package it and put it together that just makes sense. It cuts time. It saves on time, first and
Mhm.
foremost. You don't have to go years of doing all of this on your own to gain these skills, because these individuals, such as yourself, have already done it, and you packaged it in a way that you
Hmm.
wish someone would have packaged it for you. Am I correct?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yes, definitely. I wish I had a career coach growing up, so to
sure.
speak, as a nurse, but I feel like it's not a thing, and it really needs to be.
Yeah.
So,
So more and
mhm,
more of us are starting to discover our power and our purpose in being able to teach others. And, before we started recording, I mentioned, it's very difficult for us in the trenches, whether we're a nurse manager, a charge nurse, a nurse educator, director of nursing, wherever we might fall in the spectrum of trying to coach, mentor, and teach our new nurses, or even our experienced nurses. Because let's be honest, some of the experienced nurses need some of the most work when it comes to communication or conflict resolution, right? Maybe they come from a very different
mhm,
area, a very different background, and they're used to communicating in a certain way, and it no longer works for this particular setting. And so we need
mhm,
to work with them. But we know when we're in the trenches, facilities, organizations, whatever it may be, they just don't budget for enough resources for this, right? It's just not there.
mhm,
And
mhm,
understandably, I've been in administration, I sat in the C suite before. I know budget, I understand there's a budget. And unfortunately, education and professional development is one of the first things to get cut when strict budget cuts need to come down the line. But they're the most impactful for
mhm,
all of the statistics that most of these organizations get reimbursed from, which is
mhm,
wild to me. It is so
mhm,
wild that it's the first thing they cut, but yet they talk about patient satisfaction scores more than anything else. They talk
mhm.
about the
Yep.
Google reviews more than anything else. They talk about how can we pacify or satisfy the grievances that are coming through in the droves, but yet
Mhm,
they're cutting the support services to improve the way that the staff communicate, the way the staff
mhm,
handles conflict, the way the staff nurtures each other. And instead
mhm,
of fostering a nurturing, healthy workforce, they're they're hammering down on it's everyone's individual responsibility to be the best person they can be at all times, with zero resources for handling, emergencies or conflicts or emotional turmoil as it arises. Because, as you know, and as everyone listening here, nursing is not easy, and we're often
mhm,
dealing with not great situations. People are in pain, they're suffering, they're grieving, they're losing, whether it's life or limb. It's a very challenging place to be, and it's very emotionally taxing. And we just need to do
mhm,
better as a system to support the staff to develop those skills. And, you know, as I
mhm,
said earlier, even the best of us get kind of lost in the mix because we just have too many tasks that we need to do,
mhm,
important things, regulatory things, life-saving things that we need to do. And we don't have enough time to spend with our nurses, our
mhm,
colleagues, to have those difficult conversations that can make everyone have an aha moment at the end and come back to work the next day with a new, renewed sense of purpose and respect and professional integrity. Because it is those
mhm,
difficult conversations, it is those teachable moments, it is those case scenarios, or maybe breaking down and reviewing the conflict that happened earlier in a more controlled and less distracting way. It's those situations that's going to change the behavior, not writing
mhm.
someone up and telling them that they were unprofessional. That's not going to change anything, right?
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
amazing that you're doing
Exactly.
this work. A lot of us are out here doing this work. So it's so important. And anyone who's listening that is on the administrative side of things, whether it's academics, whether it is clinical spaces, individual entrepreneurs, whatever it might be, you need to reach out to Kristen, right? You need to get your
Mhm.
nurses in alignment with her especially those that you feel are drifting, the ones who you know are not satisfied with what they're doing. Maybe they do have a communication problem. Maybe they don't know how to handle stress or conflict very well, and they react instead of, being proactive and trying to set up their workday instead of being a victim all the time. I think Kristen could provide great services. So with that, Kristen, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Yes. Well, thank you, Damien, for having me on your podcast. It was a
My
pleasure to share my story with you and with all your listeners. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is nurse.potential. And I also have a website where you can book a free 15 to 30 minute initial assessment call where we can talk about what's going on with your career and how I can help. And my website is www.nurse-potential.com.
Amazing. And you're also on LinkedIn?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn, and my name, you can find me under that, Kristen Gutierrez, or KMGUTIERR.
Amazing. So I'll certainly have all of the ways to connect with you in the show notes of this episode. And thank you again for all of the work that you're doing, despite the adversity that you've experienced, despite the challenges, figuring out where you have aligned with your purpose and passion. It's so amazing. Thank you so much for being on the Nursing Strategies for Success podcast. And I hope to see you again really soon. Take care.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. And that concludes episode 2 of season 4 of the Nursing Strategies for Success podcast with this week's guest, Kristen Gutierrez. We hope that everything we shared in this podcast episode will help you lead the charge and find alignment within your nursing profession. All of the ways to connect with Kristen will be in the show notes of this episode. And as always, if you have any questions about anything covered, please feel free to reach out to me at thenursespeak.com. I would love to have a conversation with you. So until next episode, take care, be well, and remember that nurses really can do anything.